What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I am joined again by Ricky, who has, offered a couple of knives to show here on the channel. One, of course, being his Paramilitary 2, and this is my Manix 2. Both of us have owned both of these. He actually owns both of them right now. I just own the Manix, but I want to talk about these two today because they are two of Spyderco's most famous models, and there is a lot of, I don't want to say argument, I want to say discussion on which one of these is better. And, I don't think we're going to actually determine which one's better today, but I just want to talk about each of our opinions on what we do or don't like about either model, and just kind of discuss. The reason I have Ricky here is because he's got a unique perspective. He's just kind of gotten into this, more premium cutlery thing and hobby, I guess, whatever you want to call it. And he started off with the ZT0095, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then his second purchase was the Paramilitary 2, and then his third purchase was a Sprint Manix. So that's cool because he started off with three like super amazing, highly regarded folding knives, arguably one of the best ever of all time. And he uses them. He doesn't really have any reserve against using them. And I've been doing this for a long time, around 8 years, and I'm a little bit more reserved with how I use my stuff. And I've again, more of a knife snob. If you watch my other videos, I have kind of snobby, critical opinions about different things. But we're just going to kind of just do a quick discussion about these two. And I also want to point out, if you're new to this channel, or if you've been watching this channel, Ricky has something that he ordered that we are both super, super excited about. And whether you are new to knives or new to premium knives, or you're somebody who's collected and used knives for 20 years, what he has coming will interest everyone. And it just got released, and it will likely be here Monday or Tuesday next week.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely going to be worth subscribing and looking out for that video for. I think a lot of people will be really, really excited to see what he's got coming. But anyways, let's talk about these two here real quick. The quick specs. Manix 2 is 8 inches overall. The Paramilitary 2 is it 8.3?
I think so.
8.3 inches?
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So we've got two folding knives. It's my understanding, I believe, that the head of Spyderco and his son designed these two knives. This was designed purely, and I could be wrong. There could be somebody in the comments that's like, you don't know what you're talking about. I think the head of Spyderco designed this one, and the head and his son designed this one. And apparently, I actually learned this from watching another video. You can tell this by the marks, the maker's marks on the blade. Eric Lesser and Sal Lesser. So actually, this is just Eric, and this is Eric and Sal. You can see there the little E and the S, I suppose, is the insignia there. These are both G10 with steel liners and S30V. I think we've got two pretty good models here to compare. So recently, Ricky's had the Manix 2, so he's had a chance to use and handle both. What are the things that you like or don't like about the Paramilitary?
It was the first Spyderco I had, so I really like being able to flick it out, which it's a little tight right now. But I really like being able to flick that out. That was a little weak there. It's hard to go from one to the other. But it fits your hand really well, and I like how you can kind of get up on the choil there.
Right.
But then when I got the Manix 2, it fits my hand a lot better. Like, I think it could just be the way, I don't know if it's just the way the knife's shaped or if it's particularly my hand, but I feel like it fits a lot better, and I really like this lock more. Yours is your detent's a little stronger than mine is.
Yeah. Ricky's, if you go back and watch that video about the buttery smooth action explanation, Ricky's Manix is a great example of how the Spydercos can break in and just be perfectly smooth over time. I would agree like there are a lot of people that would disagree and say that the Paramilitary 2 is the most ergonomic knife of all time. But here's the issue. We've got two incredible designers and two incredible knives, arguably two of the most professional folding cutting tools on the planet. And I don't know that it's appropriate specifically to say that one is better than the other, but I would agree that I enjoy the feeling of this one in hand versus this one. And my reasons for enjoying this beyond ergonomics are very, very nitpicky. I want to be clear. I really, really like the Paramilitary 2. I find this to be, you're right about adjusting between one knife to the other. I really, really enjoy this. And you know what's funny? So my first Paramilitary 2, the reason I ended up trading it is because once I was fidgeting with it and I went to do this and I dropped it because and I was like, I just immediately, this was a long time ago, I was like, oh my gosh, I don't like that because I'm going to drop it. And that's silly for two reasons. One, it was my fault for dropping it. And two, this is a tool. So we shouldn't be shying away from dropping them every now and then because it's not like it wouldn't continue to function.
I have gone to flick this open and I just literally flick it right out of my hand. I've done that a couple times and it scares me every time, but I feel like it's gonna land on my foot and just stab into me or something.
That's funny. We're gonna make it sound like we're heavily biased towards the Manix, but so my thing, I love the Manix because it has this full, some of them have milled out liners and some of them have solid liners. This one has a solid liner. And this one's got a liner all the way through too. There's something about the aesthetic of seeing the liner come all the way out to the edges of the knife. Whereas this has not really a cartridge setup, but it's sunk. The liners are sunk into the scales. And for whatever reason, I don't like that as much. But that exact setup with this is partially what makes it weigh so much less, because this knife is actually longer with a bigger cutting edge and only weighs like 3.28 ounces. We watched that video the other day. So this is super light, and I think that's why there are more people who prefer the Paramilitary over the Manix, because even with this one having the milled out liners, it would still be an ounce heavier than the Paramilitary, and you do get a substantial knife for how light this thing is, So I think that's why people see it that way. I don't know how you feel, if you have a preference. I always talk about how I don't care so much about the weight unless you get up really high. Right. But I don't know what your thoughts are on weight.
Yeah, as long as I haven't had a knife that's been super heavy that I notice it in my pocket, really. I mean, the ZT is probably substantially heavier than both of these, and I sort of notice it, but it's so thin that it's not cumbersome.
Yeah. You had a great first pick for your ZT, that 0095. I mean,
yeah, that thing's awesome.
I just I don't know, like I like hearing what Ricky thinks, because it was just interesting that his first three natural picks were, and I didn't push him towards the Spyderco or the Paramilitary or the Manix. He just discovered those on his own and decided that he liked the aesthetics and the theory of function and stuff like that, and he just picked those up on his own. And I thought that was neat. Somebody getting into the hobby didn't make the choices that are usually made. Like people like me, like when I started, I just purely went on aesthetics and didn't care about the performance of the item. And when I talk about that, for those who aren't familiar, these Spyderco flat ground blades, and the way that the edge geometry is so thin that these perform ultra well for any cutting or slicing tasks. And that mixed with the thumb hole, the ergonomics, and the ease of deployment and retraction of the blade, the locking mechanisms, in this case the compression lock on the Paramilitary 2, and the what do we call this, the ball bearing lock, I suppose, on the Manix. Those are, all those things together encompass the full utility of these knives. But kind of going off on a tangent there. But I don't know, so let's talk about the locking mechanism. Which one of these locking mechanisms would you say is a more natural feeling for disengaging the blade?
I've been carrying the Manix a little more lately just because that's the most recent one I got. But I feel like when I was using the Paramilitary too, it's a lot more natural to just do that, I think.
Yeah.
depending on how your hand's sitting on there.
Yeah. I would agree with that. I think that's I think you're right there. And despite me being, because my first one I judged it on the lock, and then I remember I got that other one, an S110V, and put those titanium scales on it, and I just loved it. It was like this newfound love I had, and I had a more practiced hand, and I was a little bit less overprotective of my knives, so I didn't worry as much, so it made my hands weren't as shaky when I was opening and closing it, and I think that made a big difference.
At the same time though, now that they're right by each other, I noticed when I open this, I kind of have to move my hand a little more to close it, and that could be just because I'm not used to holding that one right now. But if I recall correctly, I feel like this is more in a natural spot where you'd kind of be holding it, and then you don't have to move your fingers as much to disengage it. But that could be because I'm just more used to this one right now. Sure.
Would you say that you have a more secure purchase on this when you're unlocking it than the Paramilitary, or vice versa?
I would say you're a little more secure on this one just because the way that I close it, I kind of just hold on to the back here.
Yeah.
I don't have a whole lot of grip on it.
Right.
Whereas this one, just by the nature of the lock, you have to have a full grip on it because you have to pinch both sides down.
Right.
Not that I've dropped either one when I've disengaged, but something to think about there.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, a lot of people who are going to own one are going to own the other one, and it's interesting to, but I'm not used to this one, so, this is one of the friendliest knives out there for use, which is part of the reason why it's so famous. But you do kind of have to readjust when you go back and forth between the two. What was the other thing? Oh, so this is the only thing that bothers me about the Manix, and I talked with you about this. It bothers me that these, the locking little latches, I guess, on both sides are plastic. I wish that they were metal. I would love that. This would be the most perfect thing in existence to me if they were metal. But somebody on the forums brought up the other day that it's likely not just to keep the cost down that they made these plastic. It likely has something to do with how this interacts with the spring and the ball bearing over time. Maybe I don't understand how steel kind of degrades over time when it's like constantly moving and there's friction, and that may have been something that the designer took into consideration. On a compression lock, obviously they have to make this out of steel, but the design of this is more simple, less moving parts than this, so it makes sense. And I don't know what you think. I don't know anything about exactly how strong either of these locks are, but they're both hailed as very strong locks, very dependable locks. In terms of feeling of security in lockup, I'd say they're dead even, but I don't know if one gives you a better impression or not.
To me, they kind of feel the same. I mean, on the Manix 2, when you lock it, it has a more substantial noise that you're like, oh, hey, it's locked in, whereas this one just kind of clicks.
Right.
But I don't think that necessarily means one's stronger than the other.
Right.
I mean, I'm not going to use it hard enough to really find that out.
Right.
I'm just opening boxes and cutting random things. I'm not trying to chop down a tree or anything.
Sure. So let me ask you this. Let's do two different questions. I'll do that. This is a question that's a two-parter. Number one, which do you feel like is more of a performer when you're cutting? Which seems to do its job better, in your opinion?
The blades, that's hard to say because the blades are so similar.
Right.
I don't know. That's tough.
Okay.
I'm trying to get a feel for both of them right now.
That's a difficult question.
It would have to be a draw for me.
I kind of put you on the spot there. I was like, so tell everyone, of these two knives that have been argued about for so long, which one's a better performer? I just left that up to you. How about which is more of a joy to use while you're cutting? Because as weird as that question sounds, I think people who are making purchases like these will actually take that into consideration, how fun one is to use over the other.
That's true. I've used this one longer and harder since I kind of just got my Manix 2. But just out of a feeling, I would almost go with the Manix 2.
Okay.
I don't know if it's because it's kind of a novelty to me because it's new, but it just feels the handle's a little bit thicker. And it just feels kind of beefier, like I could just destroy stuff.
Sure. I think that's a fair. That was a more fair question to ask you because
Yeah.
it was more of an opinion based.
Instead of just which one does cut better.
I'm sorry, I didn't even think about that question before I asked it. Well, that's pretty much it. We just wanted to talk about these because they're both incredible knives, and they're both like, they're going to appeal to different groups of people for different reasons. But in terms of what they're capable of doing, I don't think you can go wrong with either one. I think when it comes down to weight and the aesthetics, because I mean, if you prefer a lighter knife, I think the Paramilitary 2 is going to be more appealing to you.
Oh, yeah.
And I think if you enjoy the Manix 2's aesthetics better, and maybe you prefer a heavier knife. I almost prefer a heavier knife just for the feeling of, it being solid, and I enjoy the aesthetics of the liners coming all the way out. This does have some extra jimping. That's just my opinion, but I mean, we're talking like if I'd give the Manix a 10, I'd give the Paramilitary 2 a 9.9. Like, it's not like I like one and I don't like the other. It's like, that's just my opinion on it,
I would say that you notice this one a little less in your pocket. Not just because of the weight. I mean, it's just a touch longer.
But it's
the thickness.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, you can see that's a fair point, and that's been brought up a lot in a lot of other people's videos, and that definitely is true. So, I mean, I think that's a fair point. I don't, I feel like we kind of covered everything that I wanted to ask you. Is there anything else you wanted to add to this?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, we're running out of time here, so thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Sorry about that. I literally ran out of recording space on my phone. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. And if you are new to the channel and you enjoyed this video, please check out my other content. I have lots of videos about knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I either do or don't like. So check those out. And if you enjoy that content, then subscribe to my channel. And remember, we have an awesome folding knife coming that I think a lot of people are going to be really, really interested to see. So, subscribe to my channel, turn those notifications on so that you can be a part of that next week. Other than that, that's pretty much it, guys. So thanks again for watching and have a great day.